Hello everyone, and thank you for joining today's session. My name is Reese and I'll be your moderator today. We're going to kick off today's session in a couple of minutes. We're just waiting so everyone has a chance to join. In the meanwhile though, make sure that you register for this session. You can scan the QR code that's on screen now. You can find the link to register in the video description, and you can head over to datacamp.com/webinars where you'll find this session as well as all of our future sessions as well. We've been creating all of our sessions for April, so yeah, have a look and sign up for our events in April as well. We are going to be using Tableau Public for today's code along, so yeah, if you don't have it downloaded already, check out the resources in the chat. There's a link to download Tableau Public in there, and there's also the data set that we're going to be using as well as a solution file that we will that will be coding today. So yeah, check things out in the resources, and also make sure to register if you haven't done so already. So yeah, and also please do drop a like on this video, check in, and yeah, let us know where you're joining from in the chat. We are going to be answering your questions today, so if you have any questions at any point throughout the session, let us know in the chat and we will be running through those during the last 10 minutes of the session. So yeah, make sure you register, check out the resources that I've put in the chat. The resources will contain the link to download Tableau Public, the data set that we're going to be using today, and the solution file that we're going to be working towards as well as some other Tableau Public bits from us at DataCamp. Brilliant. I think that's everything from me. So now I'll hand you over to your host for today's session, Richie. Richie, please take it away.
This is Richie. So today we are going to be talking about creating business reports in Tableau. And in case you hadn't spotted, one of the big points of business intelligence tools is to create business reports. You need to be able to understand the state of your business. And so having a dashboard or a report to do that is the sensible way to do that. So that means things like looking at what are the state of current business metrics and looking at how they change over time. It's actually relatively straightforward. But to do that, we have a very exciting guest for you. He's a repeat guest. So Maarten van den Broeck is a senior content developer here at DataCamp. So he's responsible for a lot of the Tableau courses on our platform. So he's actually, he came into data science via an aquatic ecology background. He's also a teacher by training and data scientist by profession. He's a certified Tableau data analyst, as well as a certified Power BI analyst. So I don't know if you have any questions on the difference between the two platforms for him. But yeah, he's a long-time data camper, very experienced at doing these code alongs. I'm going to let him take it away. All yours, Maarten.
Thank you very much, Richie. Hi, everyone. My name is Maarten. I am a content developer at DataCamp, which means that, as Richie mentioned, I'm involved at developing courses, but I like to do some live trainings as well a couple of times. So here I am with yet another exciting training about cool things you can do in Tableau regarding time series, basically. So today's session will be mainly about time series analysis, what you can do with it, why it is useful. I'll be sharing some of my top 3 visuals you can do as well with time series. We'll be talking a bit about forecasting as well. And we'll also be tackling some good examples of dashboard design, where we'll also be looking at differences between explanatory and exploratory dashboards, but that's for at the end. Small caveat here is that this webinar will be aimed for intermediate users, although beginners will be able to follow along. The source materials, data sets, and solution files have been shared with you, so feel free to follow along. But don't panic. If you're stuck, you can always try to retrace the steps we do today later if you're when this webinar is over. So first things first, time series analysis, time series data. What is it? A very, very easy definition is just that it's any data set that holds at least some time information. That's a very bold way to say, basically, when you have any column in your data set that involves some time, some date, or any other time data, you are dealing with time series. There are different sources to get by time series. Most oftenly, when you are dealing in some kind of an like corporate environment, all data that has been collected by some system will have some timestamp to it. So data is naturally, I could say, time seen as a time series. But there's other great ways on the internet where you can find time series data if you want to practice some of the techniques we'll be seeing today. And actually, one of my favorite sources to get time series data is actually Google Trends data. And if I go to that, Google Trends is hosting all the search terms that people use at Google products, whether it's web search, image search, YouTube search, and it basically aggregates each of these search terms by month. And it goes back to the very beginning of Google, 2004. So since then, Google has been collecting all the search terms everyone around the world has been inputting into the search machine. So I thought it would be nice to start with that today. Maybe to give some example of how it works, I would ask in the chat. It's kind of an icebreaker. Any terms I need to search for? Anything you want me to look up? Please feel free to share it in the chat to show you how it works. And if you see something, if you think of something that would be interesting to see, just can be anything. Can be anything you like or dislike. Any particular movie you like, any particular hobby you're interested in. I don't know, any culture, paint, can be anything. Anything you feel free to share in the chat. If see if people are willing to share an interest. If not, I'm definitely happy to involve my own example. So you had your chance to have something input there, but actually I'll want to search for a very popular Christmas song, All Much for Christmas, which is obviously something that we maybe very well know. And this now gets you the data of all people that have searched for this phrase since 2004 to today, basically, where you can see that the data is quite spiked. So every month, the data has been aggregated, and it has been laid out onto this y-axis, which goes from 0 to 100. It's basically a relative scale. 100 means that it was like the top of the search things that was searched for in that particular month. And 50 would mean that it would be half as popular as that. So it's a relative scale, so it's a bit hard to compare, but it basically gives you this idea of how it trends over time. We see like a big spike here, 2011. We see like a gradual decline that we'll see how that goes. But the nice thing is you can download all of this data just directly to a CSV file. I have already done that, so I'm not going to do that again. But in the meantime, I have the suggestion of somebody to search for horror movies. What's also nice is that you can compare different search terms at the same time. So let's see. Oops, let's refresh. Let's see how horror movies and All Much for Christmas compare. Oh, it doesn't seem to be any correlation between those two. Maybe this is for the better. So let's focus on All Much for Christmas for now. I have downloaded the data in Tableau. Actually, I downloaded it to my laptop, and I just connected the data source here. Now, by default, we'll just only have 2 columns. Very straightforward data format. Also, for some reason, Google likes to include one empty first row, and then the actual headers are in the second row. You can go into any spreadsheet and then do your thing to make these headers work. But the Tableau has, so actually since a couple of updates now, the data interpreter. If you take that off, Tableau will try to think what is the best solution here, and it mostly gets it right. As in this time, it was able to clear off the first 2 rows and use that as a header name. Now this F2 I'm just going to change to searches, because basically this is the amount or the ranking of how much it was searched in each month, and now we're ready to go to our sheet. Now again, time series data. Once your data has some kind of time in there, you can do time series. We have two columns, which one of them is the time. If we just drag month to columns and then the amount of searches to the rows, you get the approximate same result as we have seen before. We can scroll to the right. Maybe we'll just make it to fit the width. So we see the same kind of spikes we've seen before. You can connect it with a line if you want to. So we see the same spikes as we just seen on the Google Trends. We are able to see, for example, here in 2011, we had a very high speed, like the most popular search for that month was apparently All I Want for Christmas. Obviously, we see that every month of December, every 12th month of the year has been the most popular in terms of searches, which kind of makes sense if your song is about Christmas. But we're not here to talk about why Mariah Carey is popular. We're here to talk about, will Mariah Carey still be popular next year? And this is where time series is going to get interesting, because if you have these very clear patterns that repeat every year, we call that seasonality, we're able, to some extent, to predict next year's values. And that's what we call a forecast. Forecasting is natively present within the analytics fields in Tableau, but we have a problem. Forecast is currently grayed out, and Tableau is helpful for us to tell us why. It might be a bit small, but basically it states that forecasts can't be added because a date field was not found. Strange. I mean, we have our month field. Why is Tableau not able to use it as a date field? It is because our months are actually still stored as a string. So our months basically have the format of four numbers of the year, and then a hyphen, and then the month number. To make it into an actual date field, we need to parse it as a date. So we'll need our first calculated field for today. I'm just going to call this month as date, which will be the month, but then actually as a date. And I personally find this search box very helpful. Every date function that you can think of, you can look for, and we are looking for a function to parse dates to a specific format. And we come to the date parse function, as you can see here. So we see some examples here, the syntax that's necessary. So date parse, double click on that to insert. It needs the format of the original date, and it needs then the column where it wants to format on. So the format actually should be put between two single quotes, and it is actually 4 numbers for the year. So 4 uppercase Y, then the hyphen, and then month in with 2 numbers, so month. And then afterwards we say, well, this should be happening to the month column, which is currently still a string. Click OK. And now if you replace our string month with month as date, you will see that now Tableau does a couple of things. First of all, we now have an actual date field, which is a hierarchical field. We have months are part of a quarter are parts of a year. That's one thing. And secondly, by default, a time series will always be shown by default on the year level. So in this case, you will get one number for each year, which is the default aggregation, the sum of our number of searches so far. Now, some might not be the best aggregation here, as we can't really compare numbers between years, but that's not really important right now. What is important that if we now go to the analytics pane, we are able to see that forecasting is now available. But maybe not, the year is not that interesting to look at. It might give us a bit of a distorted view anyway, because obviously 2025 has just begun. We still need to have December of 2025, so this last part will be much lower than That will be when we measure it again at the end of the year. So we'll be actually looking at a month level. Now, again, second remark here, Tableau is able to show you your date fields in two different ways: continuous and categorical. Continuous fields and categorical or discrete. The difference between the two is that if you're looking at into it, if you look into it on a continuous way, it will basically treat your timeline as a continuous series of dates. So if I, for example, go to a continuous month, it will show us the same spikes as we've seen earlier. Now, the big difference is that it will actually translate to actual month names and years. So Tableau now knows it's about years. It's no longer a string. If you would show this as discrete, you will see a different view. Now what Tableau does, it basically aggregates all months of January, all months of February, and so on, across all years available in the data set. And this is interesting to look at, especially when you have seasonality, to look at which months or quarters, but months in this case, we have a certain higher or lower number of observations compared to the rest of the months. We see the same non-surprising result here. Mariah Carey is basically not being searched for the whole year, but then again, the horror starts in November, and by the end of December, we have the big spike of all the people searching for that particular song. Just to give you an idea about the difference between discrete and continuous, a nice little shortcut. If you're dragging date fields to Tableau, the column shelf, the row shelf, it will by default be discrete. And you have to click to the drop down and select the correct one. If you want to save yourself a little bit of time, it's not much, but a little bit, you can right click on Windows or option click on Mac to the columns field, and then it gives you this mode where you actually can choose directly which kind of way you want to see how your date should be viewed. So I'm going to view this as a continuous in green months, and then show the spikes again. I have a lot to tell you, just to get to the point of the forecasting and see how Mariah Carey will do next year. So we go again to the analytics page. And as we've seen, we now are able to do forecasting. So we have properly set up our dates. We have chosen for our visualization the appropriate choice of the categorical or continuous. Now we can start forecasting. Forecasting, I could give a whole seminar about that another time, but basically forecasting allows you to predict what could go next compared to or viewed upon by the data that's already present. By default, the forecast that Tableau gives you is basically a whole lot of testing going on in the background, blazingly fast. And I'm just going to cover a little bit about that, but not much, because forecasting itself, as again, is a whole area of statistical techniques. But to give you the brief summary, Tableau will use something called exponential smoothing, which is a method that is basically used for forecasting when you want to have more importance to the newest, the more recent results, and less importance of the older results. What does it mean for this particular example? Actually, we can view that if you right-click and then go to Forecast, and then click to the Forecast options. By default, Tableau will handle all of this automatically. And this will often gives you also the best results. What is now the best? How does Tableau determine what is the best option? There are several parameters that Tableau can choose from to optimize the model. It can look, for example, if you go to the custom here, we can change all those parameters. It can look at certain ways of how the trend is going. It can look how the seasonality should be considered. You can choose how many months to ignore, how long the period should be to base your data on, and so on. There's a good guide on this. If you click on this button, it leads you to the Tableau documentation on that. But automatically choosing a model will often be the best method of forecasting. And I've been talking about the best methods of this all. What is meant by that? Well, if you go to forecast again, but then to describe forecast, you will find a lot of more information on how this model was derived. For example, you can see that this forecast was based on data from January 11 to today, which means that basically everything up until 2011 was basically ignored. That's what happens with exponential smoothing. It puts a lot less interest to older data, but more to the recent one. And if you go to this models tab, again, barely scratching the surface here, and we have some courses on DataCamp that guide you a little bit deeper on this. In the background, Tableau will configure and test out all different combinations of parameters and will calculate some kind of metric, some kind of error, you could say. We have different ones. We have the rounded mean squared error, the mean absolute error, the Akaike information criterion, numbers that by itself don't tell you that much, but they are very useful when you want to compare models. So say if you calculate 10 different models, and you calculate 10 times the error for each of these models, you just pick the one with the lowest amount of error. That's the very basic explanation on how this is working. You can find all these numbers in here. Again, I definitely encourage you to check out if you're interested in that, if you click on the link, but that was lead us too far for today's session. So this hopefully gives you a brief idea of how forecasting works in Tableau. Obviously, as a business user, you're mostly interested in how the future will look like, instead of just determining how this exact model was brought into place. And actually, by default, Tableau has now predicted 2 years in advance. We can go further. Obviously, the further you go, the higher the uncertainty becomes of those models. But for now, actually, we see that for this year, December, we see a small decrease from 38 searches to 35 searches. Again, a bit hard to compare, as these are not absolute numbers, but remember those ranked numbers between top searches and lower searches. And we see for 26 even a lower number. So does that mean that we will hear Mariah Carey less on the radio? Well, I guess that we'll have to find out. It is a bit like it started. The decrease started actually from 2011. Apparently, some kind of mix-up was then happening with Justin Bieber, Mariah Carey. Again, not the expert here, but we see this decrease over time. But at the same time, we see an increase of number of streams of this particular song on things like on platforms like Apple Music and Spotify. So probably people are just less likely to search for this on Google, but they're more likely to go just directly to the streaming services. Cool. All of this just to tell you how forecasting works as a bit of a very basic example. Now let's switch to another data source, which are actually data that comes from ticket sales. Now this actually is new data in the sense that this is coming from a orchestra that I'm involved with that had 2 years ago some concerts. And actually, we used time series analysis to determine whether we should start selling tickets for another concert or not. The data set itself is quite easy to understand. We have 3 types of concert, or 3 different concerts. We have ticket price variations, and then we have the number of tickets sold on each timestamp. Luckily for now, the date is already perfectly formatted for us, so no data preparation happening here. But we'll just be looking at how we want to plot this data. We have our order date, and I'm going to just double click this. By default, it will be on the columns shelf, and then the quantity. I'm going to drag to the rows shelf. I'm just going to look at this by day, continuous days, like this. And instead of a line chart, I'm going to show this a bar chart, it makes more sense to have this, to see this as individual observations for each day. We have the number of tickets being sold. Now, the first thing I like, and I'm going to show you 3 of those today, of visuals you can do with time series. If you have multiple subcategories of a certain item you're selling or whatever this is about, you're able to compare what these values in a so-called bar-in-bar chart. So what do I mean by that? If I go to the types of concerts and I drag that onto color, obviously you will see for 3 concerts we have the amount of tickets stacked up upon each other. Now, for now, I will just filter out that 3rd concert, concert C. I will let you know in a minute, but I'll just go to focus on concerts A and B for now. And now it's actually a bit hard to see for each day how many tickets were sold, or which concert sold the most tickets. Whether it was this one or this one, you have to hover over it to compare the values. An easy way to show this is to see these 2 bar charts as 2 that are overlapping. To do that, you can go to your analysis window here and then stack marks and put them off. Now, all the 2 categories or the 2 concert types will be showing overlapping each other. And obviously this now, at first sight, this makes it a bit hard to compare, but we can play with the thickness of the bars to show both simultaneously. To do that, we're just going to bring the concert again, but now to the size marks. And we can see the smaller bars representing concert A and the bigger bars representing concert B. And this now gives you an opportunity to view or compare for each day how many, what was sold next to each other. For this day, for example, now it's much easier to see that there were more tickets sold for concert A than for concert B. So just as a first example of how time series can be used to visualize 2 different categories or more of a particular thing that you're selling, for example. Now, we have talked about time series. Time series are usually seen as a line, so for good reason. I'll show you why in a second. So let's do it again. Let's go to a daily view again for each tickets. And a line, we are used to read from left to right in the Western world, so it makes sense for us to see time or to perceive time from left to right automatically. Now, this very spiky graph might not be the best one to give you some indication of how things are progressing. So instead of having individual observations for each day, we would like to see this as a cumulative sum instead, or as you would call it, as Tableau calls it, a running total. So we're going to change this sum into a table calculation, which is a running total instead. And here you can see now that if you go from left to right, so from old to new dates, actually these sales are pretty linearly evolving over time. We can go to the Analytics tab and add a trend line. And actually this gives us a solid idea of where the ticket trends is going to. You'll also see that forecast is also, again, not available. While we do have a date field, this means that forecasting is not available for when you have data that is used in the table calculation. So it seems that we're not able to predict what comes next, but I'll show you a way to do some kind of predictions even anyway when you're working with running totals. So I'm going to leave the trend line for now, but I'm going to split them up again by the concert. First, I'm going to focus on, again, concerts A and B. Almost there to tell you why. And then I'm going to show you the lines for each of the concerts. I'm just going to add concert to the color pane and see the different results. Now we see a bit of a like it's less obvious now that there's a kind of a linear relationship between date and the running total. And to make that clear, we're just going to add a filter for order date. You could just shift or on Windows or command on Mac to the filters pane to duplicate what's already there, or you can just grab it from here. And we'll go for a range of dates now. So instead of a single date, we're just going to focus on, say, the date that was just the data was coming in for the month of February. And for ease of use, I'm just also going to show this filter, make it available here. No, not this one, but the order date. I'm going to show this filter, and now we can actually start playing with this. And why I'll show you this, the reason why we were tracking the sales data for this is that we wanted to predict whether a certain concert would be sold out or not. And if it would be, would it make sense to start selling tickets for a potential third concert? And this is where a concert C comes in. To make it visually clear, I just going to add two lines, one vertical line and one horizontal line. So the first vertical line, which will drag onto the day pane here, will be the day when the concert is supposed to happen, which was the 2nd of April. So this vertical line now shows you the end date of when the concert is happening. And ideally, before this date, we want our concert tickets to be sold out. What is sold out? Well, therefore, we need our second line, which is, again, another line, which will be horizontal now, which will look at the amount of people that we can host in venue, which was, if I'm not mistaken, 197, like this. So now actually we see that ideally we want these lines to be crossing this line, this horizontal line, before we cross the date of the 2nd of April. So just to give you a clear idea of how we're doing this. So at the moment we were gathering the data, and then you can use this in your project as well, when you're still gathering data, and it is about, you're getting data during a certain period of time, and which you'll simulate now here, you are able to predict to a certain degree where a particular category or whatever type that's what you're trying to visualize is going towards to. And you'll see that these lines, actually, these orange line, blue lines, so for concert A and B, are actually pretty much always pointing in the right direction. They kind of shift around a bit if you go further in time, which simulates gathering more data here. And so at some point, we were pretty sure that we would sell out both of these concerts. So we're like, let's add a third concert. Let's plan a third concert and start selling tickets for that. And now finally, we can visualize our third concert here. And tickets start being sold like halfway throughout the period. And even after a couple of days, we could already see that this was going to the right direction. And it took off even faster than we anticipated. And about 2 weeks before the actual concert was happening, also this line seemed to be crossing that 197 line before the end of the period. And to give you the full picture, even this third one crossed even concert B sales at some point, and we were able to successfully predict that 3 concerts would be sold out, and not 2. And we would actually, so we were able to use some data here to predict that it would make sense to start selling a third concert. And this obviously can apply to anything that you would sell or anything that you're gathering data from. And it gives you another look into how time series can be used to predict the future. Just to say that. So this is a use case where time series data was actually useful to drive more sales and to make more people happy, basically. All right. That being said, there are a couple of other visuals that I just would like to show you what you can do with time series data. There are a lot. I mean, definitely more than we could cover in the time of today. So we have seen this bar over bar or bar in bar chart. We're going to create two more. One is actually a very simple calendar view. We all know calendars. We all know how they look. We all know intuitively how they can be used or what you can do with it. It might be a good asset to have in your toolbox, but also something that can be really useful to use on a dashboard if you're, for example, trying to visualize time series data. And you can even use a calendar as a filter and so on. So how do you make it? Basically, a calendar is a grid of two columns. Basically, we have weekdays and weeks. So to do that, I'm going to right-click or option-click and drag to columns. That means that I can directly select the correct aggregation. So I'm going to go for weekdays on rows, and I'm going for, same thing here again, for weeks on the, sorry, weekdays on the columns and weeks on the rows, like this. It would make sense to first to start with one of the months. So I'm just going to filter by a specific month. I'm just going to look for data of March only. And now we can start filling in the values that we want to see. So in this case, again, it's ticket sales. We're going to drag that to color. We get a kind of a heat map, but we also want to have the actual numbers present in that calendar view. So we drag it again to text label. Tableau will, for some reason, change this to another automatic mark, sorry. So I'm going to change it back to squares, and now we have numbers and colors present there. A few more things to tweak it to make it actually look more like a calendar. Most of the times, these views, or sorry, these all these individual days are represented as squares. So we have that. We might just hide the labels or the headers for the number of the weeks, like that. We also might hide the order date, like that. And maybe we can also, let me see here, the alignment could be better. We might put it in the right top corner, for example. And here we have a very simple calendar view. You could make this, again, we can show the filter of the months and change this into a slider. So that allows us to cycle through the months and show us data of particular months that something has been sold or something that has happened. Days where nothing was sold will be empty, or we will be white. But this is a very simple way to visualize your data if you have data on a daily level, or if you want to aggregate your data on the daily level. And you can use this to show like high selling days. Use that maybe for your marketing department. Say, hey, we want to invest more on days where sales are lower, or we can even reduce ad costs on day where sales are already going well. So this is a way to show that. And you could even use this as a filter. If you would add this to your dashboard, you would be able to let users click on any of these days and view data in a more granular way if you want that. Second was the second way. A third way of showing time series data is sparklines. Now, sparklines are something that is breaking some of the rules of classic data visualization, in the sense that it doesn't use any axis labels or no legends, whatever, but it shows you the general trend of where a specific category of data is going to. So we're going to show that here as well. I'm going to option click order date to the columns field, like that. And I'm going to go for continuous days, like this. And then I'm going to look for, let me see here, the quantity goes to the rows. And we are going for these sparklines, that's fine. And now we're going to use the ticket variation on the rows again. So we're going to drag that in front of that. So it splits them up by ticket variation. In hindsight, I'm going to look at not a ticket variation, but at concert instead, just the 3 concerts now, to see how the sales of each of the individual concerts was going over time. Sparklines are known to be very small, minimalistic, so you can do that by dragging this chart and make it much smaller. I'm also going to get rid of this header, but first I want to do some things to my axis. Basically, I'm not going to include the 0 point so that it all is a bit more spaced out. That's fine. And I'm going to hide those headers as well. And then I'm just going to reduce the size as much as possible to where it's still visible. And then also we can hide this header as well. This gives you a very minimalistic overview of a certain product, certain category, certain concert in this type, and the trends of it going through time. So it doesn't even have any axis labels. You can't see the exact dates, or you can't see the exact magnitude on the y-axis, but it gives you a visual representation of how data is going, what is happening with data over time. And especially when you're comparing different categories or some product, it makes it easy to just compare all of these in a bird's eye overview and see which ones are going down and which ones are going up. We would even be able to, for example, add some to show the mark labels, but only for example, the minimum and the maximum, or for the first and the last one, line ends, for example. So now you have some kind of quantitative information on those lines, but sparklines in general are very minimalistic in nature, and show you just like the bare trends of where the data of a particular category is going towards to. These were 3 of the visualizations that I would recommend in when you're designing dashboards for your own. Now, before we're looking into some good examples of dashboards, I just want to highlight difference between how we can use dashboards for explanatory analysis and exploratory analysis. And so far we have been covering bits of both. So I'm just going to show you a bit of how that goes. And it seems indeed that I lost some of my, today Tableau for some reason was crashing a little bit. But that's not worry. Don't worry. I've made some backups, so hopefully we'll be able to show you these in a bit. This is already loading. That's good. I'm just also going to look at this particular file while I'm opening this and give you some. Okay, just what I wanted to show was actually this basically. So very conceptually, if you want to make your dashboards visually interesting, you have to think about what the use case of your dashboard will be and what your audience will be using it for. And you could split all dashboard types in 2 categories. Maybe a bit rough, but you could say one of the type is explanatory the dashboards, and the other type would be exploratory. How can you make a difference when you are when you want to let learners explore your data? You want to basically offer them some tools and not guide them into a particular direction that you have in mind. You basically let the users explore the data at their own pace. So when you're building exploratory dashboards, you would actually be able to not highlight a particular data point or a particular category, like in these examples. It's very these are fictive examples. This was data about a specific grandmother and a big bad wolf. But show the differences when you, for example, have a bar chart of a number of items, or in this case, number of sick days. If you want to have your user explore the data, you can just show all of them in the same color. But if you want to guide them into some direction, in other words, if you want to have them more, if you want to be more like an explanatory experience, you can use some highlighting. And highlighting can be happening within the chart, but also in the description of that particular chart. So in this case, we can focus on the 4 sick days by highlighting them in this bar chart and also giving it the same color in the description. Other examples are here. For example, here it's compared between the amount of wolf's body parts that are consistently larger than those of a grandmother. If you want to focus or let your user focus on the wolf's body parts, you should highlight them within your chart and also highlight and use the same color in that description. And here's another example of pie chart where you're talking about all the categories, and here you are talking about a specific of those categories. So using the specific highlighting is definitely a good trick to guide your learners, your users into a specific direction that you want them to go. We'll be seeing these examples in a practical example soon, but first this other example. You can also use other headlines. So in the last example, we saw that the headlines were just the same with different formatting. You can actually go with completely different headlines. And again, in the case of an exploratory dashboard, you want these headlines to be just descriptive. You don't want to guide your learners into a specific direction. You just say, in this case, it's about pigs, and again, a big bad wolf. And in the case of an explanatory dashboard, you do want to highlight a specific message or goal or things that you want your users to understand. Here again, for bar charts, if you want to focus on the specific of the materials, in this case, you select or you highlight a part of the bar chart. And especially with scatter plots, if you want to have your users explore data, you just show the scatter plot with a bunch of filters on the side. When you want to convey a message, when it's about to explain something that you want to have in mind, you can definitely make use of some highlighting of some of the interesting points that are important to you to show your message. So with now that we have seen or told this, I'm just going to show you a few examples of dashboards which are either explanatory or exploratory. So this nice dashboard was not made by me, but it's definitely one of the good examples we find on the public websites. It is a way to show you or to have your learners explore the data. So this is an example of an exploratory dashboard with a lot of filters present. This one is even so nice to have a button that uses filters. You can filter through the years. In this case, about the Superstore data set that you might all know. It doesn't really matter now what's on the dashboard, but it just shows you how this dashboard was being used to basically let users, force of habit, to let your users explore the data that you have in mind. You make use of a bit of highlighting of colors, but in this case, it's just highlighting the highest values. So it doesn't really guide you into a specific point. It's very interactive. You can use one chart to explore the others. So it basically it gives the freedom to the users to explore the dashboard. Now an example of an explanatory dashboard, and let me see if it is still open. No, it probably has crashed as well. So bear with me for a second. Just going to open you this one, which is a dashboard that has a specific goal and a specific message in mind. So this one is actually about the burden of childcare in the United States. And even without looking into the data or without looking into what it is about, you see that the author has made a good choice of colors. Remember the highlighting in the descriptions to refer to the same color coding within the chart. And the chart in this case is a map. And you see even that without going to looking at what the values are, that these higher, redder values are the same as represented in the slide, the highlighting of the descriptions over here. And the author describes about Michigan, where you see that the cost of childcare is much higher in comparison to other states. And this is, again, interactive. There's not much filtering going on, but it's more about conveying the message. And it has some exploratory aspect, but the main message here is just to convey the message that in this very red-colored state, which is Michigan, the costs for childcare is much higher compared to the rest of the United States. Again, an example of showing how the data let it speak for itself, and you don't offer much interactivity with the user, but it shows you, it conveys you the message in a very quick fashion. So this could even be used in some kind of news article or on a website. Without the interactivity, it will still show you what this is about. Now, does it always have to be strictly exploratory or explanatory? No, obviously, as always, there is a bit of a gray zone here. So there is some, there are some like small overlapping areas. For example, in this dashboard, again, it is about the Superstore data, and this one is a bit of a hybrid, you could say. So on one hand, you have your classical KPIs, which shows the learner a very high-level overview of the most important metrics. You see here another example of using sparklines, by the way. This the lines I just showed you. And then it is some kind of it's a bit colored. There are some indications by making some states coming out more than others. So this is a bit of a hybrid. There is some filtering involved with these filters on the top, but it also out of the box gives you or gives the users some way to perceive the message without going too much into details. That being said, it's not always exploratory versus explanatory. It's not black and white. There are definitely cases where the purpose of your dashboard is more grayish, but the same principles apply here. There, when we can make smart use of colors to highlight things that you want to focus on. And that being said, the dashboard that I showed, the chart that I showed just a bit ago. Let me go back to this one. Here you can also have a bit of interactivity for your learners, where you let them filter throughout the order date in this case, but also at the same time show you why you use these analyses to, for this case, predict that you want to sell out tickets for another concert. And with that, I'm really ready for questions you might have about all of this. So once about time series and everything about that, but also about dashboard design and how we can use some clever tricks into making your audience go to a particular message you want to convey.
All right, super. Thank you, Maarten. That was really informative, and I like the way it was like not just let's create this kind of particular plot. It went into like how you create entire or design entire dashboards. So we've got a few minutes for questions. I can see there's one question from Steph in the audience. I've got a couple of questions as well, but we also have time for more if anyone wants to write some questions. So let's go to this message from Stephanie was sort of this message came at the start was saying, I want to know what are some of the more advanced use cases for business dashboards. Because it seems like a lot of it really is like, you draw your time series analysis, a lot of those, maybe you do something a little bit fancy with sparklines if you've got lots of metrics, and it's still fairly sort of straightforward, simple stuff. Are there any advanced features you need for business reporting?
Actually, for business reports, always think about your audience and think about who the dashboard is for. And there, the take-home is most often the simpler the better. So you definitely don't need any fancy techniques. As I showed, making a calendar is something that most people, everyone knows how it is structured. It's not a fancy thing, but it makes it just very understandable for any kind of user. Well, maybe at some point we should definitely go into a very like high level and specific use case and how we should build like one dashboard from A to Z. But that would maybe a bit too niche for the audience for today. What I want to show today is that even with time series data, you don't always have to create a classic line chart. You can do much more with it, and you don't always have to do these fancy visualizations for your end users.
Yeah, I think the fanciest I would normally go would be including filters and things, because maybe like you got a time series, but you want to change the time period. So it's like, do you want to just look at the last month, or do you want to look at the last 6 months or a whole year or whatever? Do you want to filter on like just one region's worth
Yeah.
of data, that sort of thing? So yeah, filters seem very important, and you want dynamic updating there, but probably I agree with keeping things simple. All right, so I have a question for you. Since you talked about both having these exploratory dashboards where you've got a lot of interactivity because you want to just be able to ask a lot of questions very quickly for yourself, and then you've got the explanatory ones, which are kind of simpler. What's the workflow for taking your exploratory data analysis and turning it into an explanatory one?
Yeah, good question. And they were into the realm of data storytelling. Again, before I go any further, definitely check out our courses on DataCamp we have about data storytelling. We have a good source material there. But also there, keeping it simple is key. Having one, maybe two messages you want to convey to your audience and focus on that. And make, like in this example, no, it's not shared anymore, but think about the map of the USA where you see that you just make smart use of colors. So you don't have to do you don't have to do much explaining. It's self-explanatory, and you automatically visually guide the users to specific item on the chart that you're showing. So keeping it simple, keeping it to maximum one or two messages you want to convey, and then work your way from your exploratory data set and make it visually appealing for the explanatory version. Good question.
Okay, nice. And I suppose related to this, you talked about it's really important to make sure that your dashboard is answering questions for the people who are going to use it. How do you know whether it is or not?
Yeah, well, I have been a data science consultant for a few years before I joined DataCamp. Talking with your end users is obviously, but sometimes forgotten. And having quick, like short cycles of feedback iterations. So you show your customer or your end user what you have. You ask for feedback. You iterate on the feedback, and a short while after you show it again. So that's one thing. Also, what definitely can be useful, but more time consuming, is just sit next to your end user and let them use your dashboard, acting if you're not there, basically. So you let them work with it, and you see where they're struggling with, how they can find certain information or bits of information. That would be a second strategy, but obviously a bit more time consuming.
Oh man, you got to talk to your colleagues. That sounds terrible. Okay, yeah, but I like that you've got that kind of the sort of the pulling in information by just getting your users to report things about what they don't want, and then there's also that kind of push thing where you go and sit and watch your users do stuff and see where they fall over. I feel, yeah, user testing is like this whole separate field, maybe something that I think a lot of business analysts need to learn about. All right. Okay, we're coming up to time. Before everyone dashes off, I just want to say on March 27th, we have got the next Radar conference. So this is going to be virtual conference. We got a ton of great guests for you. So I think we've got like 20-something thousand people signed up to join this. It's going to be a huge event. The link in the chat. Please do sign up for it. So we've got sessions on data careers, managing teams, what you need to learn about AI, what product skills you need for if you work in data. There's all sorts going on. It's going to be a really great day. Please do sign up for that. And also we've got a few webinars coming up. So in the near future. So next week we have got 2 sessions. So the next one's going to be on Wednesday. It's going to be a session on building dashboards using Plotly and Dash. So this is similar to today, but using Python tools. And then on Thursday, we've got a session on managing high-performance data teams. So for any of you who are managers in the audience, please do come back for that. All right, with that, thank you so much again, Maarten. That was really great stuff. Thank you to everyone who showed up today. Thank you, Stephanie, for asking a question. Hope to see you all again soon, and definitely see you at Radar. Please do get registering for that. All right.
Likewise. Thank you, Richie. Feel free to reach out to me if you have more questions, and see you soon in another webinar.